Alright, so now this is a pretty common problem with the bike. You come on out to it, turn it on, go to press the starter button, and nothing happens. Well, today we're going to be talking about starter motor problems. Alright, so in order to repair starter motor problems, the first thing we need to do is understand how the starter motor circuit works. So this is a typical starter motor circuit that you'll find in many bikes. You first start out here. You got your battery. And it's got its negative and its positive leads. The negative lead goes off to the frame of the bike, and that's where it grounds out to the frame of the bike. The positive is going to go in here and it's going to feed into your starter solenoid. Now, this is a typical starter solenoid. Sometimes they look a little bit different from this, but usually they're a cylindrical shape, and you find them oftentimes behind one of your side panels, like down by where your leg sticks. So, you got two main leads that go in and out of your starter solenoid. These are these two big ones here. One is connected directly to the positive side of the battery, and one goes off to your starter motor. Alright. Now, on another part of your starter solenoid, you will obviously see that there's two smaller leads. These leads go down here, and they connect to your starter button. Sometimes there's only going to be one lead, but that's because the power, see here you've got a power and a ground. That's because the power actually is hardwired from this side, so it's kind of a more efficient design. It's like you got your wire that comes down here, and that provides the power, so you only have a ground. And so when you press the button, that grounds out this circuit, completing the circuit. Now what you have inside here is actually a very small electromagnet, and there's like a little spring that keeps them apart. And when you supply power to these two small leads via the starter button, it electrifies this, and these two magnetic contacts up here touch. And when this one goes up here, it bridges the gap between the battery and the starter motor. So in effect, it's just like a switch. It by pressing the button, this switch comes up and it bridges this connection, and that supplies power directly to your starter motor. This is necessary because the current which flows between the battery and the starter motor is much larger than a typical switch, like your starter button switch would be able to carry, so they'd always be blowing out, or they'd be blowing fuses or whatever. So this is a really simple and elegant design to help prevent that. Anyway, current goes through here. If you're pressing your button, it goes through here again, goes to your starter motor. Now, your starter motor right here is directly connected to idler gears or a gear and chain or whatever, and it connects to your flywheel and it starts your motor. But it also grounds out to the frame of your bike. Therefore, remember here, our negative, this is the complete circuit. It grounds out. So, in order to start your starter motor, we need to make this complete circuit. And as you can see, there are a couple of different components in here. You got your battery, you got your starter solenoid, you got your starter motor, but there are a number of different ground points. There's like this connection point here, where it connects right here. There's this one, obviously, where it connects right here to the starter motor, where it grounds out. All of these, where the battery grounds to the frame, all of these are important points, and if you're having some kind of a malfunction, these are all things that you need to check. The easiest component to check is your starter motor. Here I've got a sample starter motor from a Kawasaki KZ305, and I've got a good battery behind it. what I've done is I've wired the positive lead of the battery to the connection point right here on the starter motor, and this is the negative wire that goes to the negative lead. And what I can usually do is I can touch this pretty much anywhere on the body of the starter motor, since it grounds out through the body onto the frame of the bike. But what I do, typically, these are the best ground points right here, these bolt holes where the starter motor bolts into the bike. So you can just touch it. That's what should happen. Usually it just like leaps right off the table. This is a really good starter motor, and this is a really good battery. Having a bad battery is another reason why your starter motor might not be engaging. If you go to press your button and you hear a click, click, click sound, that's the noise of the little internal magnet inside of the starter motor trying to get up there and then falling back and trying to get up there and falling back, and it just doesn't have enough power to get up there. So that might be an indication that you have a bad battery. So to test your battery, it's real simple. Just get your multimeter here and put it on volts. You can see we've got 302 or 1302, and that's good. If you have anything less than say 12.2 or 3 volts or something like that, you might consider charging it up a little bit or replacing the battery. So if it's not your starter motor and it's not your battery, next you should check your starter solenoid. You can just pull it out like I have here. What I will typically first do is just supply power to these two leads here and see if I can hear the sharp click of the battery moving up and down in here, or I'm sorry, of the electromagnet moving up and down in here. 99% of the time, if you can hear that click, then this starter solenoid is good. So I'll show you guys what the click sounds like. So you can hear it in there. But to be doubly extra super sure, you can check the continuity between the two leads. What I have here is I have my multimeter is hooked up. I've got positive and negative. It doesn't matter which one is which because we're just checking continuity. We're just basically making sure that the magnet is going up and is providing a circuit to go from this one to that one. So I'm going to turn it on here. 1 here means that there's no continuity, there's no electricity flowing between the two lines, and that's expected because no power is being supplied here. So in effect, it's as if you're not pressing your starter button. But once I apply power in here, a power to these two lines, then we should have electricity flowing through. So that should go turn down towards 0 if it's a good starter solenoid. See that? Almost perfect. It's just a little bit of resistance, and that's just fine. So that means this is a good starter solenoid. So those are 3 of the most common problems. Another fairly common problem for a non-starting bike is bad grounds. If you ever get on a forum or whatever and you say, oh, why won't my bike start? And guys are like, check your grounds, check your grounds. This is what that means. This wire going from your battery will ground out to the frame of your bike, and if it gets rusty in here or loose, or this gets loose, or this one in here gets loose, or any of these are loose or rusty, you need to clean them up. You need to either tighten them down or take a file, and sand them down a little bit, get all the rust off them. I've got I use this stuff a lot. Dielectric grease is really good stuff. I just slobber it all over these connections and then tighten them down. And what it is it's sort of like an insulator, and it doesn't allow any water to get in there to re-rust them. So if you find your problem and you fix it, put some dielectric grease on there to protect it. Some guys don't use it. They say that people who use it like I do aren't using it as it's intended. The way that I feel about it is if I put a bunch of it on an electrical connection and then I tighten it down, that tightening down is going to squish out all of the grease, and so it's not going to be in between the two connections. It's only going to be around it, so it's really going to do a really good job protecting it. Some guys use it a little bit more sparingly. I don't know, experiment. and see what works best for you. But this is a really good way to prevent this type of problem in the future. Sometimes these wires also get burnt out. I've seen that happen before. They just become so used over so many years that they don't let the current flow as well as they should. Sometimes down here also, this is actually pretty rare because the starter motor has a really good ground. It's got, you can see it grounds out both here and here, and also it grounds out along a lot of this surface. But sometimes it just doesn't make as good a ground as it used to, and so it won't be grounding out to the frame. So that's that's another course of action that you might have to remedy. Additionally, the problem might be in your controls here. It could be either in your starter button or in your kill switch. Obviously, if your kill switch is off, there's your problem right there. But sometimes the switch inside fails and it's off all the time. And so you're going to have to open that up or open this up, make sure it's working properly. It's not too hard to open them up. It's just a couple screws underneath there. Just open it up. There's a couple of moving parts inside. Clean them up, put it back together, see if it works. If it doesn't, go ahead and click on my channel and check out my video on how to hotwire motorcycles. It's not just a video teaching people how to steal motorcycles. It's a video that can actually be kind of a useful diagnostic aid for electrical problems. So you can hotwire the motorcycle either in the back of the ignition here. There's a little switch that you can hotwire it with, or you could just temporarily snip these wires and connect them together, twist them together, and just see if it works. Play around with it, especially on a bike that's this old. This is the 81 KZ 440. Just play around with it. It's a really easy system. I'm sure you'll get it. The starter motor on this bike is actually located down here below the carbs. You have to remove the carbs to get at it. Mine actually seized, and so I'm waiting. There's another YouTube fan is sending me one, so mine is out at the time, but it's typically located right down in here, and here is where it grounds, right along here and everything. So you just open that cover off. It's got two bolts, plus this bolt, which connects directly to the starter solenoid, or rather this wire connects directly to the starter solenoid. So unscrew all them and then jiggle it out. Now some bikes you can just jam that starter motor on back in there and you're good to go. Some bikes have this small chain here which connects the starter motor to the flywheel. You've got this tiny little gear here, and it hooks up into the chain and hooks onto the starter motor. So you're going to have to remove this side cover here and install the starter motor, then install this gear and chain, and then hook the side cover back up and fill up the little bit of oil that dripped out. But I mean, that only takes just a couple minutes. That's not too hard. You can see this is the starter solenoid for this bike, and it's got a decent amount of corrosion on it. We got rust in there and metal corrosion and stuff. After my starter motor gets here, I'm going to see if it works, and if it doesn't, then I'm going to clean it up. In fact, I might even just clean it up anyway, 'cause that's pretty gross. So if you have a problem with any of these things that we talked about today, some can be repaired and some can't. I don't think I've ever tried to repair a starter solenoid. I'm pretty sure if you open them up you can break them, so I just replace them. These switches are actually really easy to clean up and repair. Sometimes the little spring that sends this starter button back falls off and you can just set it right again, and it's actually pretty easy. For starter motors, depends what's wrong with it. There are starter rebuild kits out there, which are typically far cheaper than buying a new starter motor. First thing that I'll do is I'll get on the forums or see if any of my friends have an extra starter solenoid or starter motor that they'll send to me for free. And if not, then I'll go ahead and order that rebuild kit that sends you all kinds of replacement parts that will usually get your starter motor back on track. And other than that, it's just all down to scraping off rust, replacing wires, you know, tightening down nuts and stuff like that. Really, it's not that hard. So I know it can seem kind of alarming, you know, when you turn your bike on and you're like, no, 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 you know, but really the list of problems is pretty short, and they're all fairly easy and cheap. So good luck, guys. Let me know if you have any questions.